Everyone said we were perfect together. I married David, a man who seemed to have it all: charm, good looks, and a way of making everyone around him smile. From the outside, our life looked like a dream. Friends called us the ideal couple, my family adored him, and even strangers would comment on how happy we looked together. I believed in that perfection. I wanted to believe in it. In the beginning, everything was beautiful. David took me out to fancy dinners, bought me gifts for no reason, and whispered sweet words that made my heart race. He seemed to know me better than I knew myself. I laughed more, dreamed bigger, and felt like nothing could ever go wrong. But slowly, little cracks started to show. It was small at first. He would disappear for hours without explanation. Sometimes he would make a big deal about who I was talking to or where I was going. At first, I told myself I was overreacting. He's just protective, I thought. It's because he loves me. Then came the moments I couldn't ignore. One evening, I went to his study to look for a pen and found hidden papers tucked deep in a drawer. My hands trembled as I pulled them out. They were documents, bank statements in my name, signatures I didn't remember signing, and plans detailing money transfers I had never approved. I felt my stomach drop. My first thought was that maybe it was a mistake, something that could be explained. But the numbers, the dates, the careful details, they were all too deliberate. My heart raced. I confronted him quietly that night. I wanted answers. "David, what is this?" I asked, holding the papers close to me. He smiled, calm and unbothered, as if he had expected me to find them. "Don't be paranoid," he said. "I'm only trying to protect us. You know I care about you, right?" I wanted to believe him. I wanted to trust the man I married. I wanted to believe that all these signs were just coincidences, that I was overthinking. But something inside me, a quiet, fearful voice, told me that this was not love. It was control. Days passed. David's behavior changed in ways I couldn't ignore. He started isolating me from my friends, saying they didn't understand our marriage. He questioned my every move, watched who I spoke to, and subtly made me doubt my own judgment. Even my family started noticing how he was changing me. "Are you okay?" my mother would ask, worried. I couldn't tell them everything. If they knew, it would destroy the image he had built, the perfect husband image. At night, I lay awake, staring at the ceiling, feeling the heavy weight of betrayal before anything had fully happened. Something was coming, and I didn't know how deep it would go. I loved him, but fear was creeping in. Fear that the man I married was not the man I thought I knew. Little did I know, while I slept peacefully, David had already started planning my ruin. Every smile, every sweet word, and every gesture of love had a hidden purpose. And my life, the life I had trusted him with completely, was about to change forever. After discovering the hidden papers, I tried to act normal. I wanted to believe David was still the man I married. But deep inside, I knew something was wrong. Something dark. He didn't notice my change at first. He still smiled, still whispered sweet words, and still acted like nothing had happened. But I was watching him closely now. Every word, every movement, every secret glance. Then, the first real betrayal happened. I had always trusted him with my personal account, the one I used for emergencies and for my small side business. One afternoon, I noticed some withdrawals, large amounts of money that I had never approved. My heart stopped. Panic rose in me like fire. I tried to ask him casually, "David, do you know anything about these withdrawals?" He laughed lightly. "You worry too much. That account is for emergencies. I moved the money to a safer place. Don't thank me later." I wanted to scream, to tell him he had no right. But I stayed quiet. For now. I needed proof. I needed to understand how far he would go. That night, I couldn't sleep. I thought about all the little things I had ignored before. The way he watched me talk to my friends, the way he smiled when I doubted myself, and the way he always seemed to know more than he should. Everything pointed to one truth: he was planning something against me. The next week, it got worse. David started making decisions about my life without asking me. He told me what I could buy, who I could see, and even what I could eat. When I tried to disagree, he would look at me coldly and say, "I know what's best for us. Trust me." I began to feel trapped in my own home. My friends tried to reach me, but I made excuses. I couldn't let anyone see the real David, the man behind the perfect mask. And I couldn't show David that I knew. If he knew I had discovered his plan, I could be in real danger. Then came the night that changed everything. I was going through some old papers when I found emails and messages on his computer. They weren't just about our money, they were about me. Plans to ruin my reputation, take my house, and leave me with nothing. And there was another name, someone he was meeting secretly. Someone who wasn't me. I felt like the ground had disappeared beneath me. The man I had loved, the man I had trusted with my life, was my enemy. He wasn't just betraying me, he was destroying me slowly, carefully, without me knowing. But in that moment, a spark lit inside me. Fear was still there, yes, but so was anger. And I realized something crucial: if he was planning my ruin, I could plan his end. From that night, I made a promise to myself. I would not confront him yet. I would not make a mistake. I would watch, I would wait, and I would prepare. The perfect wife, they thought I was. The perfect fool, I would not be. After discovering the full extent of David's betrayal, I felt a cold, heavy fear. But soon, fear turned into something sharper: anger. The man I loved, the man I trusted with everything, had been planning my destruction for months. He thought I was blind. He thought I would stay quiet. But he had underestimated me. For the next few days, I watched him closely. Every action, every conversation, every careless word became important. I couldn't act yet. If I confronted him now, he would destroy the evidence, erase the trails, and leave me powerless. No, I had to wait. I had to plan. I started small. I watched how he handled money, how he communicated with his business partners, and how he interacted with his friend, the woman he was secretly seeing. I memorized passwords, watched his habits, and noted every weakness. Every secret he thought was hidden became a piece of my puzzle. At night, I stayed awake long after he slept, going through our finances, our emails, and every document I could find. I learned about every account, every contract, every detail that could be used against him. He thought he was clever, but he was sloppy. He left traces everywhere. And I would use every single one. Meanwhile, I kept up the appearance of the perfect wife. I smiled, I laughed, and I acted like nothing had changed. I made him believe I was still naive, still trusting, still unaware. Every time he boasted or bragged, I nodded and smiled. Little did he know, I was preparing a storm that he could never survive. Then came the first step. I discreetly copied the emails and messages that showed his betrayal. I made digital backups, printed important papers, and even secretly recorded conversations where he admitted parts of his plan. I had to be careful. If he noticed, all would be lost. The more I learned, the angrier I became. Not just at the betrayal, but at the arrogance that made him believe he could control me. Every time I saw him laugh, I reminded myself that smile was his weakness. I would use it against him. But it wasn't just about revenge. I had to protect myself. I quietly moved money back into accounts only I could access. I contacted lawyers under false pretenses, learning what legal moves could save me if he tried to take everything. I created an invisible shield around myself, one he would never see coming. Every night, I planned the next move. Every day, I acted innocent. I became a master of patience. I couldn't rush, because rushing meant risking everything. Revenge, I realized, wasn't just about anger, it was about precision. Then came the night I overheard him talking on the phone. His voice was low, confident. Once she signs the papers, it'll all be mine. No one will stop me. She won't see it coming. My blood ran cold, but my resolve hardened. He had crossed a line. He didn't just plan to take money or cheat, he planned to ruin my life completely. And now, I knew something else. He had underestimated my mind. From that night, I made a silent vow. I would not just protect myself. I would destroy him. And I would do it so cleverly, so perfectly, that no one would even suspect me until it was too late. I was no longer just his wife. I was a shadow, moving unseen, learning, watching, preparing. And David, my so-called perfect husband, was about to learn the cost of underestimating a woman he betrayed. The war had begun, but only I knew it. In public, I was still David's loving wife. I cooked his meals, asked about his day, laughed at his jokes, and stood beside him when people praised our marriage. He loved that version of me. He trusted her. He believed she was weak. In private, I was someone else. Every morning after he left the house, I worked quietly. I organized files, copied documents, and wrote down timelines. I connected every lie to a date, every plan to a message, and every stolen coin to an account. I wasn't guessing anymore. I was building a case. David had one big weakness, his pride. He loved to talk. He loved to feel smart. He loved to feel in control. So I used that. One evening, I pretended to be confused about money. I sat beside him and said softly, "I don't really understand our finances. I'm glad you handle everything. I'd be lost without you." His chest rose with pride. He smiled like a king. That night, he talked too much. He explained things he didn't need to explain. He mentioned accounts he never told me about. He laughed about how people trusted him easily. I listened carefully, nodding, acting impressed. Inside, I was recording every word. That was when I knew he felt safe. And a man who feels safe makes mistakes. Over the next weeks, I pushed gently. I asked innocent questions. I made small mistakes on purpose so he would correct me. Each correction gave me more information. Each conversation gave me another piece of the puzzle. Then I took my first real step. I met with a lawyer. Not as a wife planning divorce. Not as a victim begging for help. I went as a woman gathering knowledge. I learned what was legal. What was traceable. What would expose him without exposing me. I learned how men like David fall, not loudly, not suddenly, but slowly, piece by piece. After that, I contacted an old friend David didn't like. He once said she was a bad influence. Now I understood why. She was smart, careful, and impossible to manipulate. With her help, I secured copies of everything. Backup after backup. Hidden where David would never think to look. At home, his behavior grew worse. He started speaking to me like I was a child. He reminded me that everything we had was because of him. Sometimes he joked about how lost I would be without him. I smiled and said nothing. Every insult became fuel. Then came the moment that confirmed everything. One night, he handed me documents and said, "Just sign here. It's routine." I looked at the papers. They were carefully written. Too carefully. Signing them would have ended me. My heart beat fast, but my face stayed calm. I smiled. "I trust you," I said. But I didn't sign. I told him I had a headache. I told him I'd sign later. That night, while he slept peacefully beside me, I lay awake staring at the ceiling. I wasn't scared anymore. I wasn't confused. I was clear. David wasn't just my husband, he was my enemy. And enemies don't deserve honesty. They deserve consequences. By morning, my plan was complete. He thought he was winning, he thought the trap was for me. He had no idea he had already stepped into mine. And this time, I wasn't going to stop halfway. By the time David noticed something was wrong, it was already too late. He still believed he was in control. He still walked around the house like a king, speaking with confidence, making plans for a future that no longer belonged to him. I watched him with calm eyes. The fear I once had was gone. In its place was patience. I began to tighten the trap. First, I stopped asking questions. I stopped pretending to be confused. This made him uneasy. David liked feeling needed. When I became quiet, observant, and distant, he felt it, but he didn't understand it. He started talking more. One evening, he drank too much wine and began bragging. He talked about how easy it was to move money when people trusted you. He laughed about how love makes people stupid. His words were sharp, careless, and cruel. I recorded everything. The next step was his business. Without touching a single document directly, I quietly contacted people who were already doubting him, partners who felt cheated and associates who had noticed missing funds. I didn't accuse him. I didn't threaten. I simply asked questions and shared facts. That was enough. Doubt spreads faster than truth. Soon, meetings were called. Accounts were frozen, temporarily. David came home angry, confused, and shouting about betrayal. I listened calmly, pretending to be concerned. "Maybe it's just a mistake," I said softly. He didn't sleep well after that. Then came the woman. The one he thought I didn't know about. I didn't confront her. I didn't insult her. I sent her proof, messages, dates, promises he had made to both of us. I let her see the truth with her own eyes. She disappeared from his life quietly. No drama. No fight. Just absence. That loss shook him more than the money. Now his mask began to crack. He became paranoid. He checked his phone constantly. He accused people of plotting against him. The confident man was gone. In his place stood someone afraid. And fear makes people careless. One night, desperate and angry, he confronted me. "You've changed," he said. "You're hiding something." I looked at him calmly. "So have you," I replied. That was the moment he knew. Something had shifted. But he still didn't know how much I knew. The final move was already in motion. All the evidence. All the records. All the confessions. They were no longer just protection. They were a weapon. David thought he was losing control because of bad luck. Because of jealous partners. Because of people turning against him. He never imagined the truth. That the woman he slept beside every night was the one quietly dismantling his life. The fall wasn't loud, it wasn't sudden. It was slow, deliberate, and irreversible. There was no warning. No dramatic argument. No shouting. Just silence, the kind that comes before the truth destroys everything. David woke up that morning confident again. He had convinced himself that the problems were temporary. That he could still fix things. That I was still the same woman who trusted him blindly. He was wrong. That afternoon, he had a meeting he could not avoid. His partners. A lawyer. An auditor. People he once controlled with charm and lies. I told him I would come later. He didn't question it. He never did anymore. Before I left the house, I looked around one last time. This place had been my home. My prison. My battlefield. I took only what belonged to me, documents, proof, and my dignity. At the meeting, the truth unfolded slowly. Not accusations. Not emotions. Just facts. Bank records. Emails. Voice recordings. Signed timelines showing how long he had planned my ruin. David laughed at first. He said it was a misunderstanding. Then his face changed. The color drained from his skin as the evidence continued. Piece after piece. Lie after lie exposed. The room went silent. The man who once controlled everything had nothing left to say. By the time the meeting ended, his accounts were frozen. His business was under investigation. His reputation, built on lies, collapsed in a single afternoon. That evening, I met him one last time. He sat in the living room, broken. No pride. No confidence. Just fear. "You planned this," he whispered. I didn't raise my voice. I didn't smile. "I learned from you," I said simply. "You taught me how to destroy someone without touching them." He begged. He blamed stress. He blamed love. He blamed me. I listened. Then I stood up. "I didn't marry an enemy," I said. "You became one." I walked away. The divorce was clean. The truth made sure of that. I kept what was mine. I rebuilt what he tried to steal. Slowly. Carefully. Stronger than before. David lost everything he valued. Power, respect, and control. Not because I was cruel, but because I refused to stay silent. This was not just revenge, it was survival. I married my enemy, he planned my ruin. But in the end, I ended him.